So I see that there is less of that going on. O'Neal Cruz is not coming out of the lineup. He's left-handed. Brian Reynolds, they're not coming out of the lineup. Pagero possibly right-handed hitting second baseman. He may not come out of the lineup. You got Andy Rodriguez and Henry Davis, one switch hitter, one right-handed hitter. You have some guys in the corners. Jack Sawinski, who probably is only going to hit against righties, you would assume. So you really only have two spots, most likely that left field spot and potentially the first base spot at this point, that look like platoon spots. So for me, that's a positive sign. And of course, there's injuries. Of course, there's guys not maybe playing up to their potential. But I hope that that's a continued trend because that continuity for me was so important. Guys like Jordy Mercer hitting 8-hole every single day for us during our 13 through 15 stretch, or 14, 15. And he never complained. It was the worst spot to hit in the NL. Of course, as most people tell you, you might get one pitch a night to hit. You're going to walk a couple of times, which is great, but you got to embrace it, and you have to understand what your role is in those spots. And in today's game, you see a lot more of like, okay, let me get on time. Let me see how high and how far I can hit balls no matter where I am in the lineup. And if I go 1 for 5 with a 2-run home run and 4 strikeouts, I kind of see that as somewhat of a positive thing. And of course, that's getting a little bit ahead of myself, but that's kind of the way I'm seeing the game in this perspective, and especially for the Pirates organization right now.
Who's the guy then? Who's the guy? Who is your Andrew McCutchen for the current Pittsburgh Pirates? I think O'Neal Cruz, the injury derailed what his hype, whether it's, real or not. Physical tools don't necessarily mean that you're going to be the best player. Right. Who is your Andrew McCutchen? Because there is no team that is worth their weight in gold in the playoffs that doesn't have their Andrew McCutchen. Look at the teams that now. Phillies have Bryce Harper. Whether you think he's the superstar or not, they have the Diamondbacks have Corbin Carroll. The Rangers have Corey Seager. Who is the Pirates guy?
That's a really good question, and I'm racking my brain. I'm gravitating toward Ke'Bryan Hayes, and for the reason of, in my opinion, he's probably the best defensive player in all of baseball, and that's people are going to argue this and that and this and that, but you get to watch him on a daily basis. He's making plays that your jaw drops. But then you're like, well, I just saw him do that yesterday too. Turning double plays from almost the outfield, barehanded balls, slow rollers, things like that. But we saw a shift in him offensively at the end of this year that was pretty impressive. He's always been a spray the ball around the yard type of guy, stay inside the ball, does a really good job of using the 4-hole, especially with 2 strikes and guys in scoring position, always has that in his back pocket. Well, it seemed in August that he was going to make a concerted effort to get the bat barrel out. When he started to do that, he started to lose some balls. He started to pull to the pool side, and you're thinking to yourself, "Whoa! If you got a guy in Ke'Bryan Hayes that's playing not above quality defense, but top of the line defense, and you could potentially put this guy in the 2, 3, 4 hole in your lineup every single day, and he's giving you the type of production that he was giving you at the end of this past year, you have yourself a superstar. You have yourself an Andrew McCutchen. The guy can get on base, hits for power, hits for average. He can steal some bases. He plays really the best defense in the league. That's your guy. It'd be easy to say O'Neal Cruz. It'd be easy to say Brian Reynolds. Those guys are terrific players. I think O'Neal Cruz, I think he's got to get closer to that 1,000 at-bat mark to have a really good gauge of what offensively we have with him. But the tools, as you mentioned, Eric, are off the charts. It's incredible. You watch batting practice of O'Neal Cruz like you would Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. I mean, it's out of this world. It's incredible. So, but as you mentioned, you have to get. For me, you got to get to that 400, 500 at bat plateau 1 year, up to 800, 900, 1,200. Once you get close to that 1,000, you have a very good idea of what you have, minus situations like this year where you lose a little bit of progression with an injury. So if I have to answer that question, I'm thinking in the back of my head about guys like Henry Davis and guys like O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds, but for me, and Mitch Keller for that matter, but for me, it's Ke'Bryan Hayes.